Good evening and welcome to SigTalks for May. I'm Bruce Kastner, President Emeritus of the Washington Alumni Chapter. I'm subbing in tonight for Jim Cooper, Vice President of the New York Alumni Chapter and Chairman of the SigTalk Committee. SigTalks is a partnership with the New York and Washington Alumni Chapters now in its third year. We also operate in conjunction with and with the support of the Sigma Chi Learning Consortium. The Sigma Chi Learning Consortium is a central location for personal and professional development for our members, brought to you by the Member Engagement Committee of the fraternity. We live stream to the site in addition to storing all of the recorded sessions. In the past here at SigTalk, we've had many interesting guests, including past and present Grand Consuls, political experts, business leaders, and a wonderful panel of former international sweethearts. Tonight, we're pleased to have Brother Eric Amsler as our guest. Eric is a 1997 initiate of our Omicron chapter, a member of Dickinson's football and basketball teams. He's a 1999 graduate of the college with a degree in psychology. Brother Amsler begins his 20th season with the Heat organization, first as vice president for player personnel and general manager at the Sioux Falls Skyforce team. Eric oversees the scouting department for the Heat and the gathering of all information on potential prospects, draft, professional, and G League. Additionally, he will continue to scout domestically and internationally for future prospects. He joined the franchise as an intern in the 2004-05 season, and since then he has served as scouting and information coordinator, scouting and player personnel coordinator, director of scouting operations, director of scouting, and assistant director of player and personnel, assistant general manager, Sioux Falls Skyforce, and finally, director, player personnel, general manager of the Sioux Falls Skyforce. Our lead interviewer tonight is Grand Trustee Jeff Murison. Jeff is also an Omicron initiate, a member of the graduating class of 1993. Towards the end of our broadcast tonight, we plan to open the floor for questions. Those of you who'd like to pose questions to Brother Amsler, please use the chat screen. Our producer director, Grand Praetor James Hefner, will then flash them to Jeff and me to pose to Eric. So let's get this started. Jeff?
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Eric, thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
So March Madness, recently concluded. It swept into Raleigh here in North Carolina, and we saw just how popular and powerful, how infectious basketball has become as a sport. When you were at Dickinson, did you think you were going to have a career in basketball? And did you have any idea how popular it would become?
I definitely did not think I'd have a career in basketball like I do now. When I went to Dickinson, I was a psychology major, and I headed into the world of psychology and working with kids. My first job out of school was in Boston, where I helped kids that were basically kicked out of school or had issues with it. They couldn't go to the general population school. And then I had a kind of a change of heart, and I moved to New York City and slowly got in through small jobs in sports. And through that, we'll get into that deeper, but I kind of saw an avenue and a path where I could get working for a team and bring back that competitiveness of sports that I liked and always enjoyed. And I saw a reality that I could get into that world with, hard work and just putting my head down and going. So, yeah. And in terms of the popularity, I've always been a basketball fan my whole life since I was young, but it's definitely gotten bigger as the sport has become more global and international. But in terms of NCAA, I love how it just keeps getting better, because the thing about March Madness, you can be the best team in the world, and you never know what's going to happen on that first Thursday or Friday for a team. So it's been great.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Mute.
So, Eric, tell us how you ended up as VP for personnel for the Miami Heat.
Yeah, it's been a long road. This is my 20th year, as you know, with the Heat, but 23 overall. I spent 3 years at the NBA offices in New York or New Jersey. Like I said, when I moved back, I did the whole I spent some time abroad in Australia just with some friends on the backpacking thing. When I came back, I was moved to New York. I had some opportunity with ABC Sports to do some logging of college football games, which led to, because of that experience, led to me working for NBA Entertainment, basically just logging plays of games. And I guess they saw that I had more of an eye for like writing reports on the game and what's going on other than just, certain notes and play by play. And that led me into like the broadcast department, not on TV, but kind of logging a lot of stuff behind the scenes that Commissioner Stern, who was my direct boss back then, which is quite interesting time, was a 23-year-old. So yeah, I worked there for a couple of years, 2.5 years. And I left that job actually too, because I told them then I wanted to work more of in a competitive area, work for a team was my goal. And take off another year with my now wife. I moved to Argentina with her while she finished school. And when I came back, the powers that be at the NBA were very helpful in helping me land my internship with the Heat, which is a classic story. Because I used to work in New York City. I was a full-time like phys ed teacher per se at this place called Asphalt Green for schools that didn't have a gym. They'd come to myself and another friend of mine. And then at night I'd go to the NBA offices in New Jersey and work till 3 a.m. I'd get woken up by a cleaning lady so I could make sure I'd get on the bus back to go teach in the school. And funny enough, my interview I had with the Heat was during a time I was back working with the NBA during the trophy, like this trophy thing where I carried the trophy around. And my interview with the general manager, I was so, prepared for the interview, players, everything I could know about what he might want to ask. And he just asked me one question. He's like, so I heard your boss Stern told me you used to sleep on the floors at the NBA offices, get woken up, take a train back into the city, teach from 8 till 3, and rinse and repeat back to New Jersey. I'm like, yeah. He's like, as he said, he's like, that's all I need to know. And I literally walked out, and the guy who brought me in for the interview, I was like, is that a good or bad thing? I mean, he's like, I think it's pretty good. So that was the beginning of May, 20 years ago today, and here I am.
Great story.
Many times. It was a classic. Yeah. Good.
Eric, what's a day like working for the Heat? How does it work?
Well, mine can be different any which way you look at it. During the basketball season, which honestly can be all year round. I'm married with three children, so I try not to be on the road as much as some, but I'm gone 10 to 15 days a month, for me, I cover everywhere, whether it's wherever the top players are, I'm there. So whether it's Europe, Australia, I've been to South America, and obviously the United States, I cover everywhere where the top guys I need to see are. So in that regard, I'm on the road a lot. But when I'm here in Miami, since I run, I'm also in charge of our G League team that's based in South Dakota, which is kind of far away. I kind of run our scouting department, so I'm in the office as well when I'm here in Miami or our home game. So basic day is me. I get to the office, I fire through a bunch of all the different sites and information, just to see what's going on in the daily news of NBA, whether it's disgruntled players here, or just trying to find as much as I can about these players other than just watching them play. During the season, I don't do as many calls with like college coaches or to find intel. Like that's what I'm kind of doing now. And then when we have our home games, I'm there we have a list of free agents or players that Pat Riley tells me to watch and just make sure I'm up to date on them on and off the court. So that's I'm watching basketball and calling people about these players all the time. So anytime I complain to my friends that work the quote unquote 9-to-5 business job, and they're like, just be quiet. What are you doing right now? You're watching ESPN and watching basketball games. So in the end, I guess I can't complain. But yeah.
Tell us about the process of recruiting, selecting, and working with basketball players. And is there anything that helps you identify what will make a successful NBA player?
But the good thing about where I work, and it's very rare, is that I've been with the same team for 20 years. And funny enough, is I'm still kind of considered the young guy in our front office. I've been there 20 years, and everyone I work with has been there longer. Our general manager has been there since day one of the Heat in 1988. Pat Riley came in 1995, and our assistant general manager started in 1996. So I'm still kind of the young guy. So we built that, we punch the word culture down everyone's throat a lot, but it really is like kind of a family of, I know everyone's nuances, quirks. So I know kind of what they want, especially Coach Bolster. He was kind of my first boss. We all start kind of in the video room. So and now with him being a head coach in that 20 years, you kind of know what they want in a player. So I'm not just going to throw out some, player I really might like, but I'm like, my whole first thought, I'll have a checklist of like, is Spo going to like this guy? Is Coach Riley going to like this? Or are they just going to, tell me to shut up and go back to my room and keep looking? So we've built that trust and knowledge of each other that we know what works for us and what doesn't. And it's, I'm happy to say, I think we've been pretty successful for 20 years. So it's knock on wood, working. So in terms of the player, you try and find the best. I mean, all these guys at the NBA are the, very good basketball players, better than I ever dreamed to be. But it's just the things that set them apart: the work ethic, the mental side. You guys, LeBron James is good not only because he's 6'8" specimen, but it's also because he's one of the smartest basketball players in the league. So it's a lot goes into just being an athletic, physical freak. You got to be smart. You got to keep working because there's always someone behind you working to take your spot, take your job. And that's we always pump that to the young rookies that come to our team. Like, you got a job now, but tomorrow, next day, someone's trying to take your job. So what are you going to do to keep it? So there's a whole bunch of lists of physical, mental, and character. That's a big portion of my job that I try and uncover about the player.
Jeff?
Sure. So Dickinson College has a reputation for its international abroad program. Did you study abroad? And how did all your international travel, how did that help as you started to, be?
Yeah, it helped. It helped greatly. I unfortunately I didn't get to travel abroad during my time at Dickinson because I was in that. My first 2 years I played basketball, so it kind of bled into both semesters. So you had to pick a semester, and I never ended up doing the summer. I did go to a spring break. I don't think that counts. I did go to Ireland for 8 days in Dublin with one of our friends whose brother worked there. So I tried to make that as educational as I could. But we had fun. But my international travel really started when I left my job in Boston to kind of just quote unquote find myself, take time to see what I wanted to do. And I moved to Australia for about 8 months and kind of traveled all over. And it's just eye opening to see the different culture, the different ways people work. And then, fast forward ahead to a couple of years, I lived in New York for 3.5 years, and I knew I wanted to go work for a team. And I met my now wife, and I decided, crazily, which is another funny story I'll tell in a second, is I moved to Argentina with her while she finished up school, with the whole time in my head thinking, when I get back, I want to get back into the NBA if I can, which was probably pretty brave thinking, but luckily, and thanks to a lot of people at the NBA, they helped me get back in. So that was like the beginning parts of seeing different worlds. I mean, I moved to Argentina not knowing any Spanish. I like to think I'm okay now. And now, like with Trout, our team, some teams have international scouts, separate, like a silo effect where they just do certain things. For us, if you're one of our top scouts, like I go everywhere. So I was trying to count before we started, but I've probably been to 20 different countries, and definitely multiple times between Spain, France, been to Egypt, Australia, obviously. So it's just seeing these different cultures, and I'm one that's brave, and I like to travel and kind of experience. I don't need a driver. I like to either drive or take the transit system. I lived in New York, so you build a new sense of like understanding and appreciating like travels and trains, and I love that. That's part of the part of the job I love when I'm overseas is experiencing it and going to the off the road restaurants or places. I'm touristy, but I also like to see what they really do.
So what's maybe the most unique or most unbelievable experience you've had while recruiting for the NBA?
Well, very eye-opening was when I was in a place. I've been to Istanbul a couple times, and that's beautiful. But I went to an area called Konya, which was very religious, and they do their. I was also trying to look this up, but they do their like daily prayers. So like they have the music blaring out of like the temples, and it was just like for me, being a Catholic kid in central Pennsylvania, farm boy, it was eye-opening, and I loved it because you get to see how different people live. And in Cairo, Egypt, I went to the pyramids, and you get to see the world, not just basketball. So just it's just a different way of life, which I appreciate. There's all types of states, Spain and France, and just that it's just beautiful over there. I was in Germany. I was always amazed at Germany's got the best roads. I always tell people, I'm like, if you're going to go, drive in Germany. They have good roads. Other countries, not so much. So
I went to a Simacai wedding in Germany in December, and the roads and the train were awesome.
Yeah,
it's remarkable. You also manage the minor league team connected with the Heat. Where are they located? What's that like? That sounds like a full-time job in and of itself to me.
Yeah, it is, and we're actually one of the very few teams that are so far away. Most NBA teams try and have it within an hour or so of their parent team. But we've had such a good relationship with the family in Sioux Falls, the Heineman family. They've owned that team for 30 plus years since it's been in the CBA. So they have a very similar approach to the business side and basketball seriousness and as we do. And we saw that. And also to the fact that, my bosses believe that, if you're too close to Miami, you don't know what your focus is. You're a Heat player, you're a Skyforce player. So, Pat and the bosses are like, hey, go to Sioux Falls, even though it takes a full day to get there, but your focus should be basketball and wanting to get better as a player and what's it going to take to get to the NBA. And we've had so many success stories on our team between Max Strus, who now plays for Cleveland, Duncan Robinson, Gabe. I could rattle off 10 names of guys we've had there that have worked. So we have a good history, which helps us get players because I love Sioux Falls. I've grown to love it. I try and see them twice a month during the season, there or on the road, and luckily we have such a good connection. I have such a good connection with the coach because our whole basketball staff there is one way or another been touched by the Heat, whether they've played for us or been through our video room where we kind of all come through.
Fascinating. Yeah. So I feel like people have a vision for in their minds about Miami and, from the movies and TV. What's it like living and working in Miami and, for a major league sports franchise?
Yeah. It's been great. I came literally I started like 04-05 was my first season, but I started that summer right at the end of 03 when we had just drafted Dwayne Wade. So I feel very fortunate. And I make the joke a lot that, hey, the Miami Heat didn't start winning until I came here. It wasn't Dwayne Wade or Shaquille O'Neal or LeBron James. I feel like you got to give me a little credit to him. I'm just kidding, obviously, but it's always been a football town here with the Dolphins, but that whole Dwayne Wade era, which was unbelievable, has really pushed us up there. The Dolphins are still the Dolphins, but we're a Miami team, and it's not Miami Vice like I grew up watching on TV, but it has. We have great weather. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I've definitely become that Floridian that when it drops to, I'm anywhere that's below 54 degrees, and I'm that guy whew, it is cold, baby. I need a hoodie on. But the old me would have been in shorts and the flip flops and ready to go. But it's been a beautiful, beautiful city. It's growing exponentially. I'm that grumpy Floridian now that's always complaining about traffic. Oh my God, we have too many people. Too many of the New Yorkers are moving down here is the joke. But I love it. We have so many cool little neighborhoods. It's not just the South Beach that everyone sees on TV. You have little nooks and crannies around here that are really great for everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Eric, how do college players need to adapt for success when transitioning to the NBA? And are college players your primary source of new talent coming into the league?
Yeah, primarily the draft. When we do the draft, it is. But it's growing internationally. You've seen. I just saw a meme or something that the last 6 MVPs in the NBA have been internationally born. Like Joel Embiid is from Cameroon, Africa. Niko Jokic is Serbian. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Greece. So it's becoming an international game for sure, and the game is catching up with us. And especially as we've all seen in the Olympics, it's not a sure thing the USA is going to win every year, but primarily there's a lot of USA, or NCAA kids, I'll say, because not everyone's born here that still plays in college, but. The adapting can be very tough, and that's we'll get in. I'll bring it up too when my degree, but I call them kids. I'm the old guy, but these young players coming in, it's not just dealing with the physicality of grown men. There's a whole mental side of it. One, you're a young kid making a lot of money, and there's been a lot of meetings where we'll bring up. We can fight back and forth about a player's talent, but But to me, a big thing is, hey, we're handing a 19-year-old $6 million a year. And I'll be like, hey, and they'll start to get on. Like, I felt like I came from a pretty good family. You handed me $6 million at 19 years old, we wouldn't be here. I don't know. God knows what would be happening to me. I mean, but you got to play through young mistakes and just pray you have good veteran presence, because that's another thing. You're a 19-year-old coming into a older man's game. You're not at college hanging around with your team and your buddies that are all around your same age. There's guys that are like, we have a team, Jaime Jaquez is 22, but we have Kevin Love that's 35, Jimmy Butler. Like, these guys aren't hanging out with young kids. So they still are a group, but they still have, some players have a family. Some kids are like, we have a young Serbian, Niko Jovic, who's just turned 20, or maybe he's 21 now. I don't know. And they're young, and they have a lot of time on their hands, and they can spend a lot of time working on their game, but they also have a lot of downtime to, just be, alone. And that can be a lot to handle for a kid, on top of all the money and all the pressure that comes with being a player. So there's a lot that goes into it, other than just, can you shoot a ball? Can you play defense?
The business is college in professional sports is changing so fast. In your opinion, what are the most transformative changes faced in basketball?
Well, you're seeing it in all sports, but I mean, this NIL and transfer portal is an animal that I don't wish on anybody. I mean, we have free agency. It's 140, 150 players that I've been scouting all year, and I know they're going to be a free agent. The college coaches, I mean, as of now, they can transfer whenever they want. They don't tell you till that certain, like April till May 1st. They were like, I just want to leave, and tack onto that the NIL, which it can, and I understand it to a degree. It comes down to a money thing. I've talked to a lot of players or coaches like, hey, this guy started for me as a freshman, all 33 games, and he's leaving just because another school offered him, A and B more money, like $50,000 more money. Like, I'm trying to think of that at Dickinson. If you'd given me like $250 at Dickinson, I would have been doing cartwheels down past my fraternity house. So, but it's a whole new level that I don't know how. Hopefully they figure out a way to control it to a degree, but also and I understand it for the players that they should make some money off their name.
Eric, Miami Heat has an elite player in Jimmy Butler, an emerging superstar in Bam Adebayo. How would you describe the importance of having big name players on the NBA roster?
It helps. I mean, everyone wants to play with the star, because star players like that make you better, so especially those two. I mean, those two specifically are very unselfish, and they're all about winning. I mean, that's the great thing about Miami Heat is our main focus always has been and will be under Pat Riley, winning. That's what matters the most. And we find those players that are like that. Jimmy Butler is like that. He's not a guy, when he has to put up 30 shots a game, he will, but he whatever it takes for him to win. It doesn't matter if he's, the one making the shots or getting you the shots. And Bam plays both sides. So we have the draw of Miami. First off, that definitely helps when, a lot of people want to come to Miami, not just for the location, but you hear a lot about the tax benefits. But at the end of the day, if you have a good player, and these guys are going to get paid at any one of the 30 teams, but you want those star players that have been through the battles and know how to play within a team, which, you can be a star player that, chucks it up there a lot, but you want to play with a team player that's all about, being the final team to win.
Jeff.
Sure. Professional sports seems like a work environment that must be filled with some amazing, unique, and maybe even crazy experiences. Can you share a few with us? What?
Yeah. The PG version, there's a ton I probably couldn't tell, but I mean, my first few years when I was down in our video room, which is right next to our locker room, we had Shaquille O'Neal on our team, and that guy is, I mean, he is every bit what you see on TV. He's a big like a big kid, and always made it fun. Like, I think of, my friend and I were both interns at the time, and he was a undercover police officer for the city of Miami. So every time we had an away game, one of us had to drive him to the airport where our private plane would leave for the team, because he had a police car that had, he would always joke that it had stuff in the car. He wasn't allowed, oh, you can't be pulled over in that car. Yeah, he'd have all these, whatever. I don't even want to be selling him out what he had in his car, but he said it was for police reasons. And every time we'd stop in he'd be like, "Hey, let's go pick up Subway," and we'd go stop by the Subway or by the plane. He'd be like, "Oh, my wallet's in my bag." So like me and my friend, we're making nothing at the time, and he's making 30 million a year. So we'd buy him a Subway, and this went on for a whole 2 seasons. And at one point, my friend DC and I are like, "Is he ever going to pay us back?" Like, you have this thought, like, "Hey, this guy makes money. Maybe he'll throw me like $5,000 and help out the poor kid." Never happened, which is fine. But like, so fast forward like 3 years, he's working for TNT, and I never know if these players know who I am. And I see him walking down the hall, and he said, "Hey, what's up, PA?" I'm like, "Hey, man, you still owe me $367 at Subway." And he just points at his championship ring. He's like, "I brought you a championship ring, brother. You're paid." I'm like, "Okay, well done, touche. You got me on that one." So that's a good story. And there's so many locker room stories of guys getting fired up, and the one I think of is when we won the championship. A lot of people remember the Ray Allen shot where he hit that three to help us beat San Antonio in Game 6. I thought we were going to. I was up in my office watching the game, and we're down 5 with like 13 seconds left, and I'm beside myself, angry. So I start to walk down the back hallways to go start to get down to the court to congratulate some of my friends that work for the Spurs. And as I hit the tunnel, I literally see Ray jumping up and hitting a shot, and everyone's screaming, and I didn't know what happened. I missed like the 12 seconds thing, and we lost. And I'm like, "Wait, that's our crowd. They're screaming." And I kind of inch out, and I see him like screaming at the people trying to hold up the ropes, which is like a great line that he said some, choice words to the guy trying to bring up the ropes for the championship, what I thought was going to be the end of the game. But it just tells you never give up on a game. I missed the last 12 seconds and had no idea what happened until I saw our fans cheering. So those are a couple of, 20 years, there's plenty of stories, but those are a couple of good ones that I'll never forget.
They're definitely memorable. For our viewing audience, if you've got a question, please feel free to share it, and we'll get that worked into the program here. So Eric, how would you say your Sigma Chi experience prepared you, for your leadership responsibilities in the NBA, and how did your college experience add to that preparation?
Yeah, in terms of Sigma Chi, it was, for those who've been through it, my pledge class, there was 21 of us. And not to mention the people in the house, there was probably, give or take 30, 40 as well. So you're dealing with multiple personalities. So there's to me, I go back to that, and I'm very close to still at least 8 of the guys from my pledge class that we're still very close to meet every year. So you start to learn different personalities, what works, what upsets them, what doesn't, there's a lot of buttons pressed in college of, a lot of, ball busting, for lack of a better word, but you start to see what works, what doesn't, what can fire them up, what type of back and forth you can do. So in terms of me, it helped me in terms of kind of I'm an observant guy. So I kind of see what works with people, how they operate. And different personalities is always the best way to say it. And it's funny enough, I did an interview with Dickinson years ago, and they were like, "Psychology degree? How does that help you in basketball?" You'd be surprised. I deal with a lot of different people, between players, old and young. You got old players trying to hold on, young players trying to fight their way in. Parents that thankfully I don't have to deal with parents a lot, but at the beginning, they might have "Oh, my son's the greatest player in the world." I'm like, "Well, he's got to prove it." And then tack on that our coaching staff, which I'm convinced all coaches are crazy sometimes, but in a good way. And then the player agents, I'm dealing with player agents every day of the year, and that's a whole new animal as well. It's fun, but you get the ones that are realistic or not, and you try and guide them back. So psychology degree has been very big for me in this world of basketball.
Sure, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Hey, random question. You said you still get together with some of the guys from your year. I remember a bunch of them. But what do you do? Do you go? Did you go to a golf outing? What keeps you all together?
My roommate, the guy I got paired with in college, was my roommate. We lived together for years. Then we lived together in New York. He's out in LA now, and thank God for text, because we have a text chain. And all of a sudden, one year, we're just like, "Hey, why don't we?" We're all married with kids. We need a weekend together. So we just one of our friends had a house in the Poconos, so we went there, and then we started to make it where we went different spots around the country because we're all kind of scattered. So we try and make sure we're, one guy gets to be home based to a degree, and then we've done it probably 7 times, and it's been great, well needed.
That's awesome.
It's a crazy world we're in.
We love hearing about alumni.
Yeah.
Staying together and making.
Oh yeah, we have a crew. Our classes, and I know the class above me does this. They do a golf thing. We do a sit in the house and make fun of each other all day kind of thing and watch college football.
That sounds like a good time. What advice would you give to Simikai brothers watching this show that about how to get a career in professional sports?
My daughter's a senior in high school, and I tell her now, like, any experience you can get, anything that can just throw on a resume that helps is a big one. Like, going back to that first question, did you ever think, like, the fact that I never thought I could get in this world is, I'm upset at myself that I didn't believe that. Like, I didn't want to get into coaching. I knew that, but there's so many different avenues in the sports world of marketing, coaching, what I do with the front office. There's so many areas. And just believing that you can do it, because there's a lot. I mean, everyone thinks it's former players and former that. I mean, I played Division III basketball. I don't think that's getting me a leg up in my job. I mean, playing helped, but it's the hard work and putting your head down. And there's years of, like, you find out real quick if this is the job for you, because it's not well paid for a while. It can be brutal at the beginning, but if you love it, I'm of the ilk of, if you love the job, it's not a job. You hear that a lot. If you love what you're doing, it's not always a job. So believe me, I have bad days and good days, but it's at the end of the day, I'm watching basketball. It's got to work hard.
That's believe. Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice. Take advantage of opportunities.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit, Eric. College and professional women's basketball has never been more popular. How does the NBA work with the WNBA? And do you have any interaction with Women's League?
I do not have any interaction. We used to have, before my time, we had a WNBA team associated with the Miami Soul, but that went defunct. But and we actually have a player, Ruth Riley, works in our organization now. She was a WNBA legend, and she works in our basketball office. But I don't quote unquote have a lot of interaction with them. But it's been great to see the popularity and just like, and NBA players have been a big help in that. I think, like Kobe Bryant was huge. He kept rocking that orange WNBA sweatshirt, which now is, probably made a lot of money for the league. And it's just helping the popularity in the young groups. So that's what helps build the game. These younger players get to see it on TV. They get to see the Caitlin Clarks. They get to see the Asia Wilsons that play and are stars, and Dawn Staley. I mean, she's done a great job as a coach. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I'm glad she's in basketball, women's basketball, but she could be, at some point there's going to be a women's head coach in the NBA, and that'll be another, just open avenue for that, women in this sport that I love. So.
It's been said in most professional sports that the end of the season playoffs are far and away the most important part of the schedule as compared with the regular season games. What's your opinion on this theory?
Well, as you'll see with our team, we fell to the 8th seed, and if we had won a couple more games, we would have been in the 4 or 5 seed. So I think our season might still be going on. So I think the regular season is very important. It builds your chemistry. It builds, you want your whole team together, and you don't want to be in hindsight thinking, oh man, if I had played that game, or if we had just won 2-3 more games, we could have been in a whole different scenario. We wouldn't have to be playing this beast called the Boston Celtics that kind of ended our season pretty abruptly. So every season counts. I mean, there's definitely a level of step up when it comes to playoffs for like the stars. I mean, I by no means think anyone coasts during the year, but like they pick me, they just play. But they ramp it up when it's the games that truly matter to get to that championship, because that's our goal always.
Eric, what is the G League, and what does a G League player need to demonstrate to progress to the NBA? And has your role with the Sioux Falls Skyforce been a part of the G League?
Yeah, no, I run I'm our general manager for our G League, so I kind of oversee everything with our team. I build out the roster. I deal with all the on and off court issues that arise during the season. I'm kind of soundboard for our coaching staff, our head coach Kasib up there all year. It's because the G League is a constant rotating roster, because you have these things called two-way players that can come down from your NBA team and play with them, or you have you can lose players pretty quick if they get called up by an NBA team. So we have 10, 13 players, but it can be a different 10 or at least 4 or 5 players different every game. So I give credit to G League coaches, because they're dealing with a whole different roster, a whole different chemistry every game. So to deal with that can be very taxing, especially when you get a guy who thinks he's an NBA player, comes down and is like, oh, I want the ball 30 times. But that's not how we work. So in terms of a player, what they need to do, we always push on them like, hey, and I have so many examples of like, you do one thing great, that can get you on an NBA. Like we have Duncan Robinson, you shoot the ball. I remember him being in our summer workouts, and he was trying to do some stuff. He didn't want to be that guy to like, I don't want to shoot when Dwayne Wade or Udonis has him out there. And I think one of those two specifically stopped the practice and yelled at him like, what do you do, man? You shoot the ball, right? That's what's going to get you in the NBA. Do it. So like I always tell guys, like, focus on that one thing you're great at. And if you have a role, because Spoelstra is not afraid to throw you in a game right away. Duncan Robinson played right into the second quarter. Derek Jones, who played for us his first game, he got called up. We started him, and he had to defend James Harden, which is not an easy task. So it's not like our team, we don't throw you in at the end of the game for a couple seconds. He puts you in to see if you sink or swim pretty quick. So just do what you do well, and you'll definitely get an opportunity with us.
Jeff?
We have some questions from the audience. Let's pull them up, and we can rock and roll from there. From the Learning Consortium, can you share some specific lessons and values from your time as a Simikai that have applied to your role and have helped you professionally?
Probably patience. I usually am pretty antsy about things, and like I guess I go back to pledging and all the things you got to go through pledging, and just listening and being patient and being controlled. I mean, there's so many areas, and especially my work, where it's a high intense stress, and you just got to learn to control your emotions as best you can in certain areas, and kind of just see through the problem as calm as you can, unless a louder voice helps. But it's just getting through any problem together. It really does take a team. You can't do anything yourself, because you'll just overdo it. And you need to get as much use all the resources you can to get the best outcome.
Absolutely. How about memorable experiences and stories from your time in the chapter that maybe had a lasting impact on you, or really help point you in the in the direction of your career?
Just the friendships I've built, and because that's a huge part of my job right now. I'm like, at the end of the day, I can watch as much basketball as I want, and pray that Pat Riley listens to what I'm saying over him sometimes, of like, if he asks me, oh, this player. But for me, my biggest asset to the team is my connections and my ability to talk to anyone. So I talk to people in Turkey. I have, whatever country I'm in, I'm talking to whoever. I'm learning from somebody, getting intel or knowledge on a player or a coach or whoever they want. So just another thing you asked about what helps is being able to talk and being open to talking to everybody. And we always say, it's like, I hate to say the whole, like, it's who you know in this world, but sometimes it really is. And for me, it's who I trust when I'm talking to you. Like, I can talk to any coach, but do I believe what he's telling me? Is he giving me the used car salesman stuff? So it's kind of having that observant, like, belief, and building those contacts where it's not just like, oh, I'll talk to him. I can cold call him, but I built enough relationships over these 20 years where I know who I can talk to and get a true answer that, not just what I want to hear. Like, oh, my player is great, he's the best. Like, there's a lot of those, but the ones I trust and appreciate is that. And I think that built a lot through my college experience and just being able to talk to whoever.
We had a diverse chapter, a lot of athletes, so
yeah,
you had to get to know people and make friends and
yeah,
step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and that was a good thing about it, Dickinson. Like I know some schools, like when you're in your fraternity, it's just your fraternity. But and believe me, my fraternity was, the mainstay of my group of friends. But we got along with, for the most part, everyone at school. You hung out with everybody from whether it be different fraternities or different sport groups. It was very open-minded university or college that I really appreciated.
Cool. I've got a question from my friends and brothers at the Washington Alumni Chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, you mentioned them before, are two superstars players who came directly from high school to the NBA. To my knowledge and understanding, that rarely happens. What was it about them that made it possible for their entry in the NBA at such a young age? And was that also part of what made them so successful as players?
Those two specifically, like I was saying earlier, and they've actually stopped. The reason we don't have any more high school kids is because they made it a rule that you have to be 1 year removed from high school and 19 years old. So, but I mean, for every LeBron and Kobe, there's probably 10 to 20 that didn't make it. But those two specifically, they're just, like I was saying, they had all the physical tools that you wanted. They're big, they're athletic, but those two, competitive and super high IQ players. Like those two are head of. I mean, I think LeBron James, he gave us 4 great years, and everyone's upset that he left. But I was very thankful for those 4 years because he showed me what that guy has been dialed in since he was 12 and what he wanted to be and his legacy. And he's one of, if not the smartest basketball I've ever seen. So on top of being at 6'8", 270, he's just he can see a play. He can remember plays from 10 years ago. I can barely remember yesterday sometimes. So, and Kobe was one of the most uber competitive players I've ever seen. Like almost to a fault sometimes. I don't know. I always think could I have played with that guy? And I think I could have, but you don't play with Kobe Bryant and not bring your A game because he'll let you know every second. And he did.
Back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think we have a question from the New York City Alumni Chapter. Do you see the NBA expanding to Europe, and if when, in the near future?
I don't think so. Basically, because logistically, traveling for teams would be very hard. I do foresee maybe in the future a team maybe moving to Mexico City. I know there's a team in the G League, that plays out of Mexico City. They may. I don't even know if they'd open like an NBA Europe League because the FIBA does. That would be a tough, rule. There'd be a lot of law and legal stuff to go through with that. And I think the fact that, this is me speaking personally, I think the fact that basketball has become so global, it's just helping build their brand even more so over there. And then we have ours, they have theirs. And I just think maybe it happens in the future if we get faster planes, but to fly from Paris to, Dallas, that's going to be we're already working on health and taxing issues on player travel. I think that would just add to it, but you never know. They're always looking ahead and trying to expand the game more than they already have. But I would say for now,
I hear a rumor that we're looking at having a chapter in Europe. So if we can have a chapter in Europe, we might be able to have a NBA
there
team.
you go. You never know.
You never know.
Very worldly. Yeah.
Technology moves on.
Actually, it's more than a rumor. The executive committee just recently approved an associate chapter protocol for a couple of schools in the London, UK area. There's an established alumni chapter there that's been asked to pursue it. So, it's only a little short swim across the channel from the UK to
that's only 5 hours.
So
from New York. Yeah.
We've got some great leadership in the fraternity these days. If it's possible, you better believe it's going to happen with Sigma Chi. Yeah. We have a question from our friend Leslie Nichols. Eric, does the NBA have a salary cap or other financial limits placed on its franchises? And if so, how has that affected the way that the rosters are constructed?
Yeah, yes, we do. We do have a salary cap, and it's changed a little bit in the last year. It's not a hard cap, so there's I think the number is $171 million that you're allowed to spend for sure up to on a team, and any dollar over that for the teams that are willing to spend as much money as they want to win. There's a dollar for dollar fine, and then it goes up incrementally as every $5 million it goes to $1.50. So I don't think it's public knowledge. So teams like Golden State, who are all about winning, their tax fine. I think their salary of their players is around $240 million. So their tax bill, which is basically like getting a parking ticket, is around $280 million they got to pay to the league, which then is dispersed to all the teams that don't pay a tax. So there's a benefit to not paying the tax, because then you get a percentage of the overpay, but then also, usually the teams that get as close as they can or a little bit over, they tend to get the better players in the degree, but not always. There's some teams that are below that. Orlando, I think, is one team is way under, and they just got out of the playoffs, but they have a good young team. But there's a salary cap, and there's rules and fines the higher you go on it.
Jeff, you're up.
Yep, I think we have a question from the consortium about really Simacai's put a lot of effort into leadership development for our undergrads. What advice do you have for selling yourself, for an undergrad to take your experience in college and your major and use that to help find a job, get a job, make that, your first break into the professional world?
I'm trying to, mine was just basically when I worked for ABC College Sports. It was just like, who wants to come on a Saturday and log every play? In terms of my undergrad, is really just, again, the kind of getting your foot in the door and be willing to do anything. And because believe me, these first jobs that get your proverbial foot in the door are not always the most great jobs, and surely not lucrative. So, but it's something to put on the resume, and something that the next team, like the only reason I got my job with the Heat is because they saw I had video experience, and that got me that second foot in the door. So it's any little thing you can do to gain experience. And if that major helps, whether it's, there's a lot of people that do sports business management degrees. I had a psychology degree. I feel like any major can kind of tie into sports in some way, not necessarily what I do, but there's marketing. There's so many different departments in sports in general that you can get into.
Yeah, it seems like there's just about every imaginable job type in professional sports at this point, from accounting to marketing to finance part to the
one of them. Kevin. You remember Kevin McDonough? His brother is the CFO for the Milwaukee Bucks. He's a finance guy, and I talk to the guys in the Bucks like, oh yeah, anytime I have any question about my check or money, I go to Pat. So he's amazing. There's many avenues into this world.
Well, we're getting close to the finish line here. Tell us about some of those like truly remarkable experiences that that you can only have when you're working in such a unique space, right? Professional sports, that's such a part of culture now, right? That is our entertainment. There's a lot going on there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I don't travel with our team often, but sometimes I'll be in the same city, and just like I've been to like a playoff game when we played the Celtics when we had our big three and they had Kevin Garnett and them, and just the fan base up there is just incredible. Literally to the point where I was like, I don't want to tell anybody I'm from Miami because I don't know if we'll get out of here alive type. Like it was just, and I loved it. I was like, I'm in a suit, I have my credential, and I'm like, I got to hide this thing. And I lived in Boston for a year, and I appreciate their fan base, but I mean, then I was like, we got to get out of here alive. So just seeing that and seeing the history of a city like that, and then ours is starting to get like that. I hope. I moved in the league for 36 years now. It's just, those are great. And then the experiences I have overseas, just, I mean, people think they're seeing pressure in an NBA game of being heckled, and believe me, I know there's some things fans are saying that are off base, but I've been to games in Serbia where they're lighting fires and they have firecrackers. And I was at a game between, it was the Adriatic Final Four, and the Serbian teams versus Croatian teams. And you don't have to be a genius to know those two sides don't really like each other. And there's a kid from Croatia shooting at the foul line, and they're throwing lighters and coins. I mean, he's on the foul line. I remember, I think I told LeBron, I'm like, you think it's stressful? Go to Serbia. Yeah, they're throwing objects at you. Like, we were walking off the court, and my boss got hit by a water bottle, like full water bottle from 100 yards. That hurts. You got to duck. And it's outlined by all the cops with the plastic shields. I think recently someone was asking Jokic about how do you deal with the pressures of the NBA, and he said, "Brother, I grew up in Serbia. This is nothing." And I gave like a golf clap. I was like, "Yeah, I'd fear some of these countries where it's just but their fan base, it's like a soccer match when you see the patriotism towards their team is unreal, and it's very much like that. So just seeing that is just I love seeing the love for people's teams."
Eric, it's pretty clear that you had a good experience in your chapter, and you've got some great friends that you've kept all of these years.
Yeah.
Can you identify maybe a specific experience that you had as an undergraduate at Sigma Chi that helped to form not only your attitude about your lifelong friendships, but also perhaps some of the ways that it might have influenced you just generally?
I mean, if I had to think of anything, because I started off playing basketball, and we're a Division III program at Dickinson, and basketball has been my love forever since I can remember. And I played 2 years. I played a lot my freshman year, and my sophomore year probably didn't go as planned. And you're a young kid going through a lot of stuff. Maybe I didn't get along with the coach, and I was probably self-admitted, probably a little immature. And I ended up I was like, I'm not making the pros. And I had this tough time of thinking of whether I wanted to quit. And a lot of my friends played football, and they're like, hey, you're a big guy. Why don't you, like Coach Bro, they courted me to play football. And I was like, why not? I didn't want to stop playing sports. And they gave me another, I don't know, if I had not played basketball or not done anything my junior and senior year, I don't know how, life or anything would have went. But just those guys, like, hey, come play football. And luckily it was at a level where, I'm not, it's not the D1 where, come play football and get you killed. So I tried out, and I got to play for them for 2 years, and it just kept that love of sports going. And again, built more friendships that I'd already had the first 2 years, but just, it threw me in a sport where I knew I wasn't by any means the greatest player, but I got to play and just enjoy that camaraderie and competitive stuff that I still have, even though don't put me on a court anymore. I'll fall over and break pretty quickly, but it just kept that alive. And I appreciated that, because I think that probably kept my love for sports even deeper and friendships. So,
Jeff, we have a question for Bob McDonald. Would you like to bring that up?
Yeah. About the
Yep. Have you run into other Sigma Chi brothers in sports, and how are those conversations? What were those experiences like?
I never really gotten to speak to him, but I've followed him. Scott Cohen, who works in NFL in football for many years too. He's had a similar career to me and same kind of department. So I followed him and kind of seen how he's grown, and I know he played D3 sports. He's not some big time former football player. So I just watching him, I could see all right, he's gone through the grind. I can go through the grind, because sometimes there's some times where you're like, maybe this isn't for me. This isn't worth all the effort. But seeing someone else do it from a different sport and from afar has been good. At some point, I need to reach out to him. Leon Rose, who's the president of the New York Knicks, went to our school, Dickinson. I've had a few conversations with him, and because he went from the agent world and then the Knicks hired him, and he's done a great job there. I'm trying to think the guy, also another Dickinson, John. He used to coach. He coached the Celtics for a year. It's also the name of a college. John, I forget his name off the top of my head. I can't believe I can't remember it. But I've had some talks with people from Dickinson specifically, but I can't see other Sigma Chi's that I know off the top of my head. But I've had some conversations of people that work in sports that were in my school and fraternity. So it's been good.
It is
John Carroll. Who was his name? Sorry.
It is pretty amazing how many guys from Omicron have gone on to careers in the professional sports and broadcasting. Scott, of course. I forget who it was, but there was a coach for the Dallas Cowboys for a long time. That was before me. Kevin Nathan, I think, is a sports broadcaster in New England.
Yeah, one of my really good friends from my class, Jeff Kingston. He's the assistant general manager, maybe even a higher title for the Los Angeles Dodgers now. Him and I we talk a lot, not a lot, but here and there we'll just run like how's life, because we live it, so we kind of understand what each is going through. So
for such a small college,
yeah, I know
2,200 students, they've got something going that's pumping out the sports professionals.
Yeah.
One thing you can almost always count on is when you least expect it, you're going to run into a brother. It happens a lot, and it's always a great feeling to know the wonderful things that we all have in common across North America as Sigma Chi's.
When I took my job and moved to this job and moved to Raleigh, like on the second day, I met our chief counsel, who had lunch, and we were talking, and and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, what did you do in college?" I'm a Sigma Chi. Oh, so is I. It was truly remarkable. So it happens all the time. It's a great experience.
You never know what's going to brew up a conversation, right? Like I always tell people, like on my resume, I'm like, you can put all you want on an experience. My experience, like my resume has hit more people with like, oh, you lived in Australia, you lived in Argentina, I carried the trophy around for the playoffs, the NBA trophy, and that they don't even care. I mean, they do care to a degree. I hope they look at it, but you never know what's going to pop that just starts up a story and then leads to something else.
Take it from there. The fraternity's invested a lot in our leadership development for our undergrads. We just launched a whole lot of material for them to help write their resumes, how to describe the leadership positions in the chapter in a resume form to really convey the experience that they've had, and have to help them through the interview process. So it's a great, we believe in the learning opportunity it provides. So it's lifelong.
Absolutely, for sure. Great. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's Sig Talk. Those of you who tuned in tonight, thank you for being with us. If you'd like to listen again or share this with some of your brothers or friends, the program will be archived, and I think James is going to put the address on the screen. There it is. We'd like to thank Eric Amsler, our guest, Jeff Murison, James Hefner, the New York Alumni Chapter President Rob Case, Washington Alumni Chapter David Ashenoff, also Leslie Nichols and her colleagues at the Sigma Chi Learning Consortium. Great people to be working with. Next month's guest on Sig Talk will be high-tech executive Brother Bob Lord. Watch social media for the information, date and time, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Good night, everybody.
Appreciate your time, guys.
Being with us.
Thank you.